Welcome in everyone, this is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and today we're going to do a recap of our Youth Aether Revolt Kaladesh Draft that took place on July 1st. Shout out to Naya here for taking down first place. For those of you, we haven't talked much about draft on this channel, and we've been focusing on running standard pauper tournaments. But for any youth that are out there watching this content, just getting into Magic, drafting is one of the best ways to kind of build up your understanding of the fundamentals of Magic in terms of deck building and card evaluation and just understanding combat and tempo and creature curves and stuff like that. Building decks on the fly like you have to do when you're drafting, it's a really good way to kind of practice those skills. So the downside to drafting is that it's a little expensive, right? You have to buy 3 new packs each time that you draft. You have to find 5 to 7 other people to draft with. Usually F&Ms are like $10 to draft, maybe a little bit more depending on what store you go to. So drafting can be expensive, but shout out to Westside Comics who hosted our youth tournament. They gave the kids a discounted draft entry fee. They only have to pay $8, which is significantly less than drafts usually cost. So shout out to Westside Games for helping these kids get some drafts under their belt. And I'm just going to briefly go over the top 4 decks. And just kind of point out some of the fundamentals of drafting as exemplified by these decks. So once again, Naya took first place. He had a very disciplined draft. He kind of just stuck to 2 colors, took very solid cards in those 2 colors, and then he was lucky to open. I think he played all 3 rares that he opened. So he first picked a Aethersphere Harvester, which is a great first pick. It'll go into almost any deck. It's a great vehicle. I think his second pack had SRAM's Expertise. He was already black-white at that point. And then his third pack had Combo. Right? He exclaimed in joy when he opened up Combo, it's very rare that you open up a 2-color rare in pack 3 and it just so happens to be the 2 colors that you're playing. So he did get a little lucky, but he also just had a really good draft. So before the draft started, I always tell the drafters, the students, that creatures are the most important card type when you're drafting. And that might go against some fundamental wisdom. Many people say that bombs and removal are the most important thing when drafting, and that may be true, but for somebody who's done very, very few drafts before, the most common pitfall that I see people fall into is that they just don't have enough creatures. So I told the kids, make sure you have a good creature curve, and then you'll do okay in the draft. And Naya really took that to heart. He has 4 solid 2-drops, right? 3 drops, 2 4-drops, 2 5-drops, and a 6-drop, and then some supporting spells, right? If you're able to kind of just play your creatures, have a reasonable mix of creatures and spells and lands, you're gonna do okay in a limited format. So Naya did a great job, drafted a bunch of creatures. My criticism of his draft is he was in white and passed a whole bunch of Caught in the Brights and Thopter Arrests, which are great 3-mana removal spells. They're enchantments that basically kill a creature or exile a creature or prevent it from attacking and blocking. And he was getting these cards really late, but choosing to pass them. And, I'll take some responsibility for that. I did not tell them to prioritize removal because I wanted them to kind of focus on creatures. So he did pass some late removal, but despite that, he still had a good amount of tricks. Renegade's Getaway here served to be a good trick. Torch Gauntlet gave him some utility for his mana later in the game, and then just we're going to look at the other 3 decks that made top 4, but his creature curve is clearly the best, especially because he's only 2 colors. So moving on, Troy here came in second place. He lost to Naya in the last round. They were both 2-0. And Troy's deck is 3 colors. He does have a pretty good creature curve. It's a little clunkier than Naya's, right? He's only got 2 2-drops, and then he's got 5 3-drops, right? That's not bad, but it is notably clunkier than having the 2-drops, right? Having to wait until turn 5 or 6 to start double spelling instead of being able to do it on like turn 4. It's a big difference in terms of being able to just curve out and have a consistent game plan. And then speaking of consistency, Troy here only has, or he's playing 3 different colors. And, there is some merit to the strategy of just take the most powerful card, and then make sure that your mana can play it. So, when you're in 3 colors, you have access to more powerful cards. All of these multicolored uncommons are very powerful, and I can understand why he wanted to play them. Harness Lightning is a premier removal spell, very much worth splashing. Free Jam Regent is, a huge bomb. A 4 mana 4 or a 6 mana 4/4 flyer that can be cheaper for the number of artifacts you control, right? It fire breathes, so he's playing good red cards. Sweatworks Brawler, he's playing 5 mountains. So I did see, I don't know if it cost him any games, but I did see Troy have a lot of trouble with drawing the wrong 2 colors of mana and then having the 3rd color of card in his hand. That did happen a couple of times. If you're playing a 2-color deck, it's much less likely that's going to happen. But Troy definitely stuck to the plan of fill out a good curve. It's not the best curve, but it's a decent curve, and he just kind of played good creatures. He had really powerful spells to back it up, arguably more powerful spells than Nyla had, right? Troy here has some removal with Harness Lightning, Ice Over, Unlicensed Disintegration, right? So, a different approach to drafting, a different strategy, but, ultimately it did do work for him. I think the consistency came back to bite him, though, in the 3rd round. Nyla's consistent deck just curved out and took it down in the finals. So 3rd place, we have Kyle, Troy's twin brother. Kyle and Troy have been putting in a lot of work into the format. Kyle won our scholarship tournament back in May, right? He and his brother have been putting in tons of work. They've been playing Magic for less than a year, and they're consistently doing well at our youth tournaments. They're playing in, the adult tournaments, so they're look out for them, Hawaii. So this is Kyle's deck. Kyle and Troy were sitting exactly across the table from each other and ended up playing the same 3 colors. I think Kyle was not playing the white cards in his main deck. This is his configuration post sideboard after his 3rd round. He said he was playing against a bunch of flyers, so he brought in the extra removal spells with just a light splash. Again, the same note with consistency. I would bring up, I think this deck is slightly more consistent than Troy's deck in the sense that the majority of the cards are 2 colors, right? Black and red are the 2 main colors. He's only got a light touch of blue for the Bastion Inventor and Thopterist and the Peafowl, and then a light touch of white for these removal spells. Playing unconditional removal spells like Caught in the Brights and Thopter Arrest that will answer any creature no matter how big they are, that is something that's worth splashing for. So in terms of his curve, I think he put together a good curve. He's got very good 2-drops here. They are in one of his main colors, right? Same thing with his 3-drops. They're all black, so they're all pretty easy to cast. And then it's the higher part of his curve and the more powerful removal spells that he's splashing for. So Kyle and Troy sat exactly across the table from each other in the draft, ended up in pretty much the same colors. They played in the 1st round, and Troy ended up beating Kyle in the 1st round. But they both ended with the same record of 2-1. Troy had better breakers, so he came in 2nd place. Kyle came in 3rd place. But they both drafted very solid decks. So again, just having a good creature curve. And then I think Kyle's deck here had the most removal out of anybody's deck. So this is, I got his name wrong. I called him Jason at the tournament. So I'm sorry, Jacob, but this is Jacob. He came in 4th place. This is only the 2nd or 3rd time that he's come to one of our tournaments, but the Magic Club at Kapolei Middle School is going strong, so they've been playing a bunch over there. He said this was not his first time drafting. His deck is it's full of powerful cards, but he kind of fell into the trap that I warned the kids about of not ending up with enough creatures. So as you can see here, he's only got 7 creatures in his deck. That is not nearly enough. He does have some very powerful spells in his deck, though, right? He's got a Fumigate. I believe he won his first match against a really good green deck drafted by Jordan. off the back of Fumigate. He fumigated and got like 5 or 6 of Jordan's creatures. I saw him win a game with an aerial modification, right? Just making a creature huge and attacking. Playing an early 2-drop and then strapping a conviction on it, right? Sometimes that creature just goes all the way. But if you don't have creatures to kill your opponent, and you, like, he has a bunch of removal spells, right? Revoke Privileges is pretty much unconditional removal. He's got 2 ways to kill artifacts. He's got a shock, which is great. Chandra's Revolution deals 4 damage. Fumigate is obviously awesome. Consulate Crackdown answers all the artifacts and enchantments. Or I think it's only artifacts. Yeah, I think it's only artifacts. So he had a ton of removal, but sometimes, you know, if you are killing all your opponent's creatures, but you don't have a way to kill them, you know, you might hit a land pocket, and then your opponent might draw creatures, and then, you know, their 3/2 creature is going to eventually kill you. You know, even though your deck might be full of removal spells, if you hit a land pocket and you're not able to close out the game, you're kind of leaving the door open for your opponent. So, you know, Jacob drafted a very solid deck. He's got some good cards in it. You know, the creatures that he is playing are good. I'm not sure how good Hope of Grafir is, but the rest of the creatures in his deck are all very good. So he drafted good creatures, just not enough of them. So, you know, just one point of criticism there, but, you know, drafting is hard. It takes a while to get used to. Sometimes even experienced drafters have drafts that go poorly, and you just kind of have to always look at it as a learning curve. That's the great part about Magic. You know, it's a game, it's fun, but it's also complex enough that you're constantly trying to be better than you were before. Right? That's why I love playing the game so much. So, you know, you have a not-so-great tournament, you have a not-so-great draft, you learn your lessons from it, and you improve. So, you know, this was a good draft, a good solid draft from Jacob, but, you know, next time maybe prioritize creatures a little higher. And that, we don't have the decks from our 5th and 6th place finishers, but shout out to Jordan and Eddie for coming out to the tournament. They had a good time. Jordan was the only green drafter. He drafted blue-green energy, had a bunch of combat tricks. He went 1-2, beating Eddie in the last round in the 0-2 bracket. Eddie had a blue-black kind of mid-range-ish deck. His creature quality was not the greatest. It seemed like blue was the most drafted color at the table, so you know, finding the open color is always difficult. If you don't find the open color, sometimes, you know, you end up with not so great cards. But Eddie had a good time. I think he and Jordan were sitting next to each other in the draft, and we're both fighting over blue. So that might have cost them a little bit. But thanks to all our players for coming out. Hope you had a great time. Hope this video was insightful into just some of the fundamentals of drafting. Highly encourage you guys to go out and draft, and check out the website of your favorite local game store to see their schedule for M19 pre-releases, which are this coming weekend. Let's see, midnight, Friday night. So the midnight would be the 7th, which is Saturday. So midnight in the morning on Saturday is the first pre-release. I think all the game stores on Oahu are running their midnight pre-releases, and then they're also all running tournaments through Saturday and Sunday. So check out the website of your favorite local game store, see their pre-release schedule. M19 looks to be a great set. We'll be coming out with a video in the near future about some of the spoilers so far, how they might impact Standard Pauper, and then once M19 comes out, we'll get back into playing some Standard Pauper. So, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for making it this far in the video, and I'll catch you later. Peace.